What's up, everybody? Brett here, back today, reviewing some more news on the Twisted and the Twilight. It's the unit balance changes. This is what I've been looking to get my hands on since like day one. Today, as I'm recording this, is the day of the launch. It hasn't dropped yet. This is going to be quite a bit of reading. Hopefully, my voice can sustain us through this. There will be some changes that I will kind of skip over. You know, if a unit gets an HP change that's like 50 HP, I'm not going to read it, right? But if I see something big, I'm going to point it out. Hopefully you guys enjoy it. Just sit back, relax. I'll do all the reading for you. And I'll try to make similar points to what I did yesterday's video, which it seemed like several people liked. I appreciate you guys watching. Hopefully, you can agree, disagree with my opinions. That's fine. Just let me know in the comment section. And I can talk right back to you. Okay. All right, here we go. All right, Beastmen first up. They are increasing the hit points of their Beast Lord and Khazrak by a couple hundred. That's nice. And the melee splash attack max attacks change from 4 to 6. That's a big buff, and that's one of those hidden stats that people don't really know about. And this is kind of an important thing just to talk about if you don't know what this is, melee splash attacks. So one of the things that originally made the Mammoth from Norska so powerful was that it had a huge number of max splash attacks. So when it would hit dwarves, for instance, and its weapon damage would get spread out amongst the infantry that it was hitting and their individual models, and it individually rolled against their melee defense. It would do all this stuff, right? That's what happens when a character hits another, like a bunch of infantry, let's say, Khazrak, and 4 guys die, right? Well, before the maximum number of dudes that could die was 4. Now the maximum number is 6. So he should be killing more models per swing. The Norskin Mammoths used to hit like, I don't even know what it was. It was a lot. It was like 10, 12, something like that. And then they nerfed it down to like 6. So it used to kill, every time it would swing, it would kill like the maximum number of dwarves, let's say. Because that was kind of how I like to use them. But yeah, so this is a really serious buff. He'll get, on average, it looks like 50% more kills, probably. Assuming he's blending infantry, and it's him on a chariot, so it's a buff to him on chariot. Good buff. I think that's good. Khazrak is underutilized, and the Beastmen kind of suck in the lore department. They're very like one note. All right, Bretonnia. They increased the mass on the Barded Warhorse. They reduced the cost of Men-at-Arms Polearms by 50. I think that's a good change. Foot Squires got minor buffs to melee attack, lost some charge bonus, not a big deal. Melee defense increased, but cost increased. So overall, I think it's a net buff to them. Charge bonus on an infantry unit that already has a small charge bonus is not a big deal. I don't know if you even really needed to increase their cost for that. Let's see, because infantry builds for Bretonnia are kind of out right now, especially involving Foot Squires. Mounted Yeomen have a little bit more leadership, charge bonus, base weapon damage, and armor piercing weapon damage. That's cool. They just gave Mounted Yeoman a little bit of a buff. Same thing to the Yeoman Archers, just a tiny buff. The Wardens of Montfort, same deal, as they are also Mounted Yeoman Archers. They're the ones that do poison. The Damsel lost 5 charge bonus. These are some of these are going to feel pretty arbitrary. The Damsel lost 5 charge bonus. I think it's just a nerf to Barded Warhorses in their charge, it seems. But an increase to the Damsel's Unicorn charge bonus by 10. And 4 more melee defense. Change their walk speed. Increase the run speed. Interesting. I'm trying to figure out. These are such weird changes that I'm trying to see if there's literally any point to this. And they lowered the mass. Maybe they're just trying to make the Damsels more of an alternate pick. Especially in multiplayer. I don't think anyone picks Damsels and puts them on unicorns. If you're going to do that, you take the Fey Enchantress, right? Fey Enchantress on foot, she got 4 extra melee attack, but she lost a ton of melee defense. That's 8 melee defense. That's pretty garbage. But she does get that 4 extra melee attack on Silverall, but she doesn't lose any melee defense. So, I mean, I don't know. This probably, the reduction in melee defense on a Foot Lord might be a common theme as we go through this. I haven't looked at this yet, but I wouldn't be surprised if it's a common theme. Something having to do with the mass changes and the bracing changes. So let's see if that ends up being a common theme. If Foot Lords in general end up getting nerfed this way. If not, it could just be a nuke to her melee defense while giving her a little bit of a buff on her unicorn mount. And the companions of Corneas, they get a cost increase of 50. That might be warranted. They are, I think, pound for pound, the strongest cav unit in the game. Fighting other cav units, fighting just about anything, really. Those dudes hit hard, so no surprises there. All right, Dark Elves. Loki or Felheart. Reduction in melee attack. Increase in charge bonus. Increase in melee defense. Okay, so, I mean, that right there kind of shows you they increased his melee defense. Wonder why they felt the need to nerf the Fey Enchantress's melee defense on foot. That's kind of strange. He has more bonus versus infantry. They doubled his max splash attack from 4 to 8. Wow. And they gave him a bit better acceleration, ability to move from 0. Interesting. And then on Maelstrom, his dragon, he gets increased melee attack, and they drop his melee defense by 4. Interesting. Zarkin here, very strange. I don't know. I wish they would change up his campaign. It's one of the most asked for campaign reworks is Zarkin. I did a whole Let's Play with him when he dropped, and I think I didn't use his transformation until the final battle of my campaign. And I thought about that last night when I was making one of our videos. I was like, was that my fault? Should I have tried to use it more in the campaign? And I did try to use it. It's just the way his campaign works. It's so strange. It totally de-incentivizes you ever using his transformation. Let's see. His damage amount changed from 45 to 9. Okay. Damage chance changed from 0.5 to 1. So I think he'll last a lot longer, I think is what they've done. Yeah, means on average of minus 60% in the amount of damage caused by Zarkin form. That's good. Yeah, okay. It incentivizes you to use it more. It's supposed to be his thing, right? But as soon as you pop it, and I've seen people pop it and instantly lose multiplayer battles because it shifts the balance of power. Because what actually has to happen is for a split second, he dies. Malice dies, and then Zarkin replaces him. So if the balance of power is close enough, which is kind of when you want to use Zarkin, you just instantly lose. I've seen that happen a few times. Cold ones, okay. They get a bunch more mass. That's the most important thing. Crone Hellebrand got 2 extra melee defense and now has fear. That's a cool little change. On a horse, more mass. Big change. Still has the fear. On her Cauldron of Blood, she gets 4 extra melee attack and way more armor-piercing damage. 90 more. That's a lot. And I'm sure they've done probably something similar to the Cauldron of Bloods for the Death Hag, and they have. They lowered the base weapon damage, but they brought up the armor-piercing weapon damage, which is an overall buff. And they get a little bit more melee attack, melee defense. So, good. They probably needed it. These things can kill, right, the Cauldrons, but at the end of the day, they're just like a really slow chariot that just has to sit in an infantry blob and just try and get kills. This might help them fight other lords a little bit better. Single entities. Let's see. Sorceress, more mass, more mass. Black Dragons, melee attack buff, melee defense debuff. More mass on the Dreadlords. Like I said, these are a lot of small changes. Let's just go through these quickly. Malekith, same deal. He gets a buff to his melee attack, but lowers his melee defense. It seems like the trend is they want you to hit more and be hit more. That seems to be the trend, right? If you increase the melee attack, you're increasing the likelihood that you hit. But then if you also decrease the melee defense on almost every lord type character, at that point you're increasing the odds that you get hit. So maybe they're hoping that duels against lords, heroes, what have you, are more productive. Or single entities in general. Because you see here they're also doing it to the Black Dragon. The Pharaoh Manticore, ground statistic effect group changed from large to large. I don't know what that means. Melee weapon length changed from 4 to 6. Okay. Probably we're having trouble hitting sometimes. You could see that sometimes in their animation they would whiff an attack. Maybe this helps them hit sometimes. Interesting. So the Cold One Dread Knights got a cost increase of 50, but to compensate for that, they also got 1 melee attack, but an additional hit points changed from 104 to 122. So per model, they're getting an 18 hit point increase. Pretty cool. I think that's probably worth it for 50 gold. They are kind of their like elite cav. Same thing with the Knights of the Ebon Claw. The exact same change. They now cost 1,550. Let's see. Bleak Swords got a buff all the way around for melee attack, melee defense, and charge bonus. Dark Shards, leadership increase. They got a higher calibration distance. And projectile calibration area change from... Okay, that's very... They also got a 25 gold cost decrease. Yeah, nobody was taking Dark Shards, it felt like. The ones with shields. I think this is the calibration distance. If I have to like speculate, because I don't know exactly what that is, I don't have the definition in front of me. There's a point past which your projectiles go where they kind of lose accuracy. Or it could be because it's calibration. Maybe it has something to do with the immediate, like, how fast they pick up and start shooting. It's one of the two. It's one of the two. So, like, it's a problem like with Waystalkers and stuff where they shoot really far out. Before they gave missiles homing, and some missiles do have homing and you can see them kind of like swerve to hit units. Before they did that, certain units with huge range would shoot, and then by the time they finished shooting, whatever they were shooting at would move, and then they wouldn't hit it. And past a certain point, when you got to the extreme areas of their range, when let's say a unit would back up just out of their maximum range, the missiles would kind of just like fizzle almost, and they would have almost no chance of hitting. Maybe that has something to do with that, or maybe it's like a pickup when the missile unit is able to kind of, I don't know, like, yeah, I don't know. I'll be interested if you guys know what this is. Let me know. I'd like to know. I'd like to not spread false information if possible. So, same buffs to Dark Shards with shields, Bolt Fiends, weird changes. Nope, same stuff. All bonuses. Black Ark Corsairs, they got an increase to charge bonus and melee defense of +4 on the Hambo variant. I'm still waiting to see something amazing, you know? No, don't you... Oh my god. Alright, all of these changes are going to make me mad. I feel like all they do is nerf dwarves whenever the dwarf changes come up. Don't you dare touch the Norgamling's Ironbreakers. And it looks like they nerfed them across the board. Wow. They lowered their melee defense by 3. Shouldn't have done it. Increased the cost from 1,500 to 1,600. Shouldn't have done it. They're a good unit, but they're not even an auto-include. Not on multiplayer, so why nerf them? I never understand when they nerf things that aren't overpowered. Was anyone really like on the forums like, please nerf Norgamling's Ironbreakers? I don't think so. They're amazing. It's probably will not really affect your... If you were going to take them, you're probably still going to take them. And then they nerf their projectile damage. Weak. Kind of similar thing to the standard Ironbreakers. Grombundle is basically unbreakable now, as he should have been, right? 100 leadership from 85. He got 3 melee defense. He got a huge hit point increase. Wow, 812 hit point increase. That's massive. He got 5 more armor. He is unbreakable. So they just straight up, yeah, anytime you see like 100 leadership, that usually means unbreakable. But he's also 100 gold more expensive at 1,500 now. So I think that's worth it. That's when I see 100 gold increase, I'm like, they better make that worth it. Unbreakable, more melee defense, more armor, huge amount more hit points. And when you add 3 melee defense, 5 armor, you're effectively adding more hit points, right? That's what you're doing. So you're kind of, this is kind of like a concept from other video games. I think Dota when I think stuff like this. But in Dota, your heroes have hit points. When your hero already has a ton of hit points, you start looking for other ways to augment their resistances, right? Just getting more and more and more and more hit points isn't quite effective against certain characters who do magic damage or certain types of damage, whatever. What you want to start doing is getting armor. You want to start maybe upgrading you get evasion, right? You get different types of stats that augment your HP and make it go further. So that's kind of what they've done to him. They've just made him way more survivable, which is cool. Ungrim, they lowered his melee attack to 65. I don't know about that. But they did increase his melee defense by 10. So, weirdly opposite of some of the other stuff we've seen. They increased his base weapon damage Oh, no. They nuked it by 15. But no, wait. They increased the armor piercing. So I think it's an overall buff. That's usually what they do. They lower base weapon damage. They increase armor piercing weapon damage. It's a buff. And then they lowered his melee bonus versus large by 5. Okay, weird, but okay. Giant Slayers lose 2 melee attack, 2 charge bonus. They gain 4 melee defense. They gain 10 hit points. They gain 5 base weapon damage and 2 armor piercing weapon damage. Interesting. So they didn't touch regular Slayers. I see this as an overall buff. Cool. Eckerd Miners gain 2 charge bonus. And they nerf the explosion damage again on blasting charges. Okay. Hammers gain 6 charge bonus. Maybe they're trying to really differentiate units that are supposed to charge versus units that aren't. Because to give the hammers another 6 charge bonus, that's actually a considerable buff. And then the Peak Gate Guard. A tiny buff to their armor piercing. Maybe they were doing some like 1v1s with them and some other elite armor piercing units, and they were losing, and they wanted to kind of give them a little bit of a buff. Yeah, but then they give Longbeard's charge bonus. I don't know, guys. The Gremlin Guard get it. Gyrocopters lose leadership for some reason. Organ Guns lose leadership. I don't know why. All of these units are losing leadership. All of these artillery pieces. And Ulthar's Raiders. Okay. Grudge Throwers and Goblobbers get a little bit bigger of an explosion. Alright, weird. And then Bolt Throwers lose a lot of leadership. 11 leadership. Was that really a problem? Were Bolt Throwers... Did they have too much leadership? Weird. Very weird changes. Alright, Empire. The Halberdiers finally get the real cost reduction that they needed. They stopped messing around. No one picked Halberdiers. You were always going to choose for 375 some spearmen with shields over Halberdiers for 625. To put that in perspective, you could get like, what is that, like 5? You get 5 spearmen with shields for the cost of like 2. No, that's not quite right. You could get almost, how many? My brain is tweaking on me. Is it 5 for 3? Something like that? It was way more cost effective to get 3 groups or 2 groups of spearmen over 1 halberdiers. It's not quite a 1-for-1 in what I just said. The math isn't quite there, but it's close. It's close enough that it makes sense. You spend a little bit extra, you get 2 units versus 1. Now with 550, I would seriously consider in multiplayer getting halberdiers. And they replaced charge defense versus all with charge defense versus large. So they nerfed them there. I don't even know if they should have done that. Charge defense against all is pretty sweet. But 75 cost reduction. That's a huge buff. The Arch Lector gets more mass on foot. Yeah. Doubled his turn speed, I guess. And then Karl Franz on a Pegasus gets buffs. Weird. They increase his melee splash attack from 5 to 8. Very weird. Alright. 8 Peak Loonies cost 50 more. Crimson Killers cost 100 less. Alright, the Black Orc Boss costing 50 more is a good little nerf to me. These guys are super cost effective. They're almost an auto-include. I don't know why it just says Grom the Paunch here. Perhaps I'm mistyping. Perhaps they should be melee weapon length. So it looks like Grom the Paunch should have been in his own category right here. And it's saying that melee weapon length changed from 5 to 8. So he should be able to hit more stuff more reliably. Stone Trolls, they nerfed their missile resistance. They should have left that alone, IMO. That's what makes them good. Hopefully they give them some unique faces. Let's see. Forest Goblin Spider Rider Archers, they lose hit points. River Trolls get 2 more melee attack. Good. I feel like they need to buff them just a little bit to differentiate them from the other ones. Knock Ignore chance changed from 15 to 0. So they're going to get knocked around a little bit more. The big ones, that is. Let's see. I'm going to skip past a lot of this stuff before my voice goes out. I don't need to be talking about Lava Spider Rider Archers. Cost increase on Goblin Wolf Rider arches. Not sure anyone was clamoring for that. Okay, High Elves. Alarno the Radiant on an Eagle loses 7 melee defense. Weird. And she got... Okay, the Noble Eagle is... The Noble on an Eagle is 50 gold cheaper. That makes sense. Another thing that nobody was taking, even though it could be quite useful. But on an Athilamar Chariot, they're 100 gold more, which is also making sense, because the build recently has been to double them up to bring 2. So they're trying to probably put the kibosh on the double Noble Athilamar Chariot builds that wreck factions like the Dwarves. I've seen it used against Norsca pretty effectively. Techless on his Phoenix. Why? I don't. Some of these debuffs I don't understand. I don't know why you would take away missile resistance on a unit that costs like a fortune. 15% is not even that much. I don't know. Like, I'm never taking Techless on an Arcane Phoenix in multiplayer. I've seen builds where they make it work, but it all revolves around Lord sniping, which is getting harder in this patch. So any nerf to this, like, kills me. And they lowered his hit points by a couple hundred. Yeah, I don't know. I don't like that. I don't know if anyone was like, please make it so that we can shoot the Arcane Phoenix. He's like terrorizing multiplayer. I don't see it. It's just a nerf to Arcane Phoenixes in general. I think instead of nerfing this, maybe just nerf its melee defense a little bit more. That way when it comes in for a pick, like, it has to, like, you have to really consider whether or not to do that. I don't know what its melee defense is now, but I think that's the way to do this, and not to lower HP. Or even just to lower HP, but not missile resistance. Anyway. Omen of Assyrian, same things here. Flamespire, same deal. I don't know what Entity Radius is. Well, I can guess what it is, but maybe it just makes it so that they're easier target to hit with melee, with range stuff. Okay, weird changes to Alistair on dragons. Looks like overall they perhaps buffed him. Some weird change. Archmage on Elven Steed, they give him hit points. Yeah, guys, I think I'm going to skip past a lot of this. It's a lot of, like, weird stat tweaks. Increased melee attack, lower melee defense. It's for the dragons, and there's a million types of dragons. Yeah, I'm not going to look at all the special dragons. But melee attack on Tyrion, he can now hit 3 more entities. And they increased Eltharion's melee attack by +2. Okay. Alright, Lizardmen. Base vortex damage from 4 to 5 on the Bastiladon Arc of Sotek. So they increased that a little bit. The calibration area, once again, buffed. I don't know what that means. Nakai has greater charge bonus. That dude should have all the charge bonus. If you showed me he had like 50, 60 charge bonus, I'd be like, makes sense. He's a giant crocodile human creature who, like, runs in. He does that, like, skipping through the fields of daisies, and he just slaughters people. For me, give him all the charge bonus. I don't care. Make him like a chariot. I love it when he charges into huge formations. It's the sweetest thing. And they also gave him a good hit point buff. I think that's necessary as well. Tic-Tac-Toe gets 15 more charge bonus. That's huge. He gets more weapon length as well. More reliability to hit, I'm imagining. They're changing all of his speed calibrations. So I think they're just making it so that he can get in and get out faster. That makes a lot of sense to me. The drop sphere of Tipok, they're increasing the explosion damage and the armor piercing damage, so they're going to be more brutal. It's going to reward you for taking the micro and using it. It's a hard ability to land, especially if you're not like a pro tier player, so they're going to reward you here with more damage for doing that. Krokgar on foot has 100 gold cost reduction, as well as on a cold one, horn one, and on Grimlock, so they're making Krokgar cheaper to make him more appealing. With all the other Lizardmen lords out there. Alright. Anything else worth talking about? All these random stats. Chameleon Skanks losing 2 melee defense perhaps makes sense. The Sacred Croxigar unit, 100 gold cost decrease. Lord Croak getting a 150 gold cost reduction. That's huge. I would already take him. His ability to kill hundreds of units in a single fight while also mitigating tons of damage is pretty ridiculous. I would almost say this isn't necessary. I almost disagree with that. Sora Spears. Okay. Pretty neutral looking stuff here. Ripper Dactyls are getting a little bit more HP per model. That's good. I think they could use that. They're a little glass cannony, probably more than they're meant to be at this point. And Gotrek is getting a cost increase of 1,200. That's kind of good too. He was becoming a bit of an auto-include in a lot of builds. He's just so cost effective. Bringing him is like better than bringing almost any hero of like the Order factions that can recruit him. He can 1v1 lords. He can 1v1 monsters and dragons. Like, very cost effective. Wolfric here. More melee splash attacks when he's on foot and on horse. Ice Trolls can do more as well. Wow, I think this is the first unit we've seen with an increase to their melee splash attack max attacks. That's such a mouthful. There's no acronym that I can use either. But they also have knock ignore chance now that they didn't have before, so they won't get knocked around as much, and when they attack, they'll hit an additional unit. Should lead to more kills. Berserkers lose their knock ignore chance. And then the Pharaoh Manticore, same deal from before. They're getting 25 gold cheaper for the Norskin. Skaven Slave Spears and Skaven Slaves are losing some melee attack and melee defense just a little bit. Alright, Warlord Bonebreaker, another actually a mislabeling here. They're gaining 5 charge bonus. Several hundred hit points. Is that 600 hit points? And a 150 gold cost reduction. I already took these dudes. The Warlords and the Bonebreakers. They're cheap, they're effective, and now they'll be even cheaper and even more effective. I'll definitely take these guys into combat. I like to save gold and go as wide as possible with as high of a troop quality as possible. For me, the Lord isn't how I usually win multiplayer battles. It's usually done with, maximum number of highest effective units that I can afford, while my Lord is there to just survive and do what damage they can, be as effective as they can, but I don't usually rely on them to win because I usually play against Lord sniping abilities. Pretty much, it feels like most of the time. So I'm not relying on my Lord to carry me to victory. Mass changes. Queek getting a little bit of a buff here overall. Melee attack, melee defense, splash, max attacks. Yep. And then the decoy no longer has stats, okay, for the Triad unit, the Regiment of Renown. All right, Tomb Kings. 4 more melee attack for Cetra on his Sphinx, but he loses 4 melee defense. Okay. All right, I'm going to skip past a lot of this stuff. It's a lot of tweaking of those varieties. Queen Khalida can hit more units. They increased her splash attacks from 4 to 6. And they gave her 20 armor on the Necro Serpent. That's good. That's a little bit more survivability. I like that. Alright, Vampire Coast. Animated Hulks. I'm interested to see how they change these guys. They just made them a little bit kind of faster and gave them 2 more melee attack. They're one of the most underutilized units on the entire roster. They didn't really buff them. Alright, these are big debuffs, and this is something that I want to talk about. I think they're big debuffs from what I've heard, but maybe not. The zombie pirate gunnery mobs of all varieties are losing 40 unit models. 40. That's a huge amount. They're going from 160 to 120. They're gaining 2 melee attack. They're gaining 4 hit points per. They're gaining increased reload skill of 10. They're losing missile spread. I don't know what that statistic is. Base missile damage changed from 10 to 12, so that's increased. Reload time changed from 9 to 11, so they're slower shooters. And they reduce their accuracy. Okay. Weird. I don't know. To me, it's like when people complain about stuff like the zombie pirates being too good, it's like that's all they have. That's what they have. Artillery, they have decent casters, and they have their missile units. That's what they have. They don't have cost-effective melee units like this is what makes them scary, and you just like nerf them all. I don't know. It's interesting. And to kind of combat the bomber meta that's kind of shaped up, I remember for like a year, all people talked about was how like trash the bomber units were when they first came out. And I was like, I don't know, guys. I think they're pretty good. And I would put them into my front lines and I would wreck people. And I'd be like, I don't know what y'all are talking about. I think they're good. And then all of a sudden, the meta caught up. And I'm not going to say I originated it because I certainly did not. But I think I saw their potential before a lot of people did. And now they're everywhere. So to counter that, they've nerfed them and they've increased their cost by 50. Yeah, they were just a unit that I always, every time I brought them, I got a ton of value. Use them as almost like frontliners, just like you would use miners with blasting charges. And then you can pull them back and put in some cheap zombie pirates. And then keep doing it. Yeah. What else are we working with here? Depth Guard get 1 melee attack, 5 charge bonus, 3 melee defense. And they gain 20, they gain 20 entity mass. So it's going to be harder to cycle in and out from those dudes. I mean, nice buffs overall to the Depth Guard. They're not really like changing anything else. Looks like they're nerfing a little bit, maybe the Bloody Reaver Depth Guard. Or not, I don't know, it's hard to tell. It's pretty same type of stuff. Luther is losing 20 ammunition. That's almost certainly necessary on foot and on this Terrorgeist. I like that. He was able to sit up in the clouds for too long and snipe lords. And now he's going to be forced to come to the ground. Even having 30 ammunition is still a lot. 50 was kind of like a ridiculous amount. And I don't think it was necessary. And then the carronades are 50 gold more expensive. I wish that wasn't the case. I don't think they need to do that either. But, you know, maybe they know something I don't know. Willing to go with that. Helman Gorst on his brother's Gorst corpse cart got a 200 gold cost reduction. That's huge. They really want you to play him. I'm down with that. Because he's such a vulnerable target. You risk so much by bringing him. And it's the same thing with the Master Necromancer on a corpse cart. They're trying to make corpse carts more viable, I think. Because they're getting a cost reduction across the board. Very cool. Vlad gets 7 charge bonus. He's losing base weapon damage, but he's getting a ton of armor piercing. So he's going to be better in a duel. He also gains terror, which is huge. But he's also going to be 200 gold more expensive. So, interesting changes. He'll be better at dueling other things. Killing infantry with armor. Perhaps routing stuff. The Devils of Schwarzhofen. Looks like they're gaining armor piercing. Cool. Vargeist here. Getting way more weapon damage. And, yeah. Better armor piercing. Nice. The Red Duke. Going to have more melee splash attacks from 4 to 8 whenever he's on his Hell Steed. The White King gets more mass. Alright. Warriors of Chaos. Forsaken 2 more base weapon damage. Cool. Aspiring Champions. Let's see how they change these guys. Additional hit points per entity changed from 190 to 230. That's a lot. They don't have a lot of, I think it's 12. I play everything on like ultra sizes. So, you know, 40 over, I think they have 12. 12 units. So that's a pretty big increase for them. They gain 2 base weapon damage. They also gain some armor piercing damage, so just straight up big damage. And now they have knock ignore chances. So they're going to be able to stand and bang. They're not going to get knocked over very easily with this increased knock ignore chance from 0 to 20. Nice buffs to them. They're so cheap. I love taking these guys. I almost always take at least one of my Chaos builds, and nobody plays them. They're pretty cool just to stick it amongst some Marauders, right? Keep them fighting longer. You'll get more value from your Marauders. If you put them into a good, like, cheap melee blob, they'll get tons of kills with their splash damage. They're hard to take down. They have an encouragement aura. That's kind of their deal. Yeah, I like them. Let's see. Manticore is kind of the same deal as the other ones. Chosen get more damage overall. Weapon damage and armor piercing. Colette gets 6 more melee attack, but he loses 6 melee defense. Looks like the same deal to the Dragon Ogre Shaggoths as well. Prince Sigbald is now unbreakable. It looks like at 100 leadership, that's basically unbreakable. He can hit twice as many units with his splash attacks now from 4 to 8. He has perfect vigor, which is amazing. And then they replaced his Foe Seeker and Deadly Onslaught with Slippery, which is better, and Heroic Killing Blow, which is better. Wow, in custom battles. That's very cool. Slippery kind of makes sense. It's a slippery fellow. He probably oils himself before every battle, so that makes sense. What a weirdo. Chaos Warriors with Halberds get 4 more melee defense. I like that. And then the Chosen with Halberds get 4 more as well. Chaos Marauders with Great Weapons get 1 more charge bonus and get a cost reduction of 25 gold down to 475. Good change. I don't see a lot of people taking the Great Weapon variant. Maybe this will incentivize it a tiny bit. Alright, I'm expecting lots of changes for the Wood Elves. Dear God. What else do we have left after that? We have the abilities, and then I'm sure we have spells. Yes, okay. Just trying to get a handle on how much longer I should push my voice here. Glade Lord gets 5 leadership. And on an Elven Steed, they get Vanguard deployment. That's very cool. The Glade Lord with Eagles get way bigger firing arcs. Maybe that'll help them with their accuracy. Forest Dragon, Glade Lord, 5 extra. Okay. Let's get down to Dirthu. Dirthu gets Vanguard deployment attribute. That's pretty sweet. I mean, he's a giant tree. Put him in some trees, hide him. How scary is it when Dirthu like deploys behind your forces? You're like, oh god. Treebeard has come. See, Spell Singer. On a unicorn. Lots of, kind of small changes. Not too interesting. Alright, Orion gets 20 physical resistance, but loses 20 missile resistance. That's a net buff. Because almost all missiles are going to be physical in nature. Very few of them are going to be magic missiles. There's a few. But overall, to get a 20% physical resistance buff, I like that. And then he gets increased reload skill from 0 to 10. And he can fire while moving. That's a huge buff. So Orion gets buffed here. He's going to be tankier. He's going to, probably throw just a little bit faster, I suppose. And then he can fire while moving. He's just like a mobile artillery piece, like a super mobile artillery piece running around. Tree can lose 5 melee defense, but they have an increase to their base weapon damage from 40 to 60. And they gain armor piercing of 8. That's huge buffs. And they can hit more models, so from 2 to 3. And they have Vanguard deployment. You're going to be seeing a lot more Treekin, I think, in multiplayer, that's for sure. Same thing to the Firebark dudes. Treemen get Vanguard deployment as well. They want you to Vanguard deploy your trees. See Dryads here. Weird speed changes, +1 melee defense change. Let's see. Branch Wraiths, nope. Way Watchers get a little less accurate and cost 50 gold more. Hawkeyes cost 50 gold more. A lot of these changes, I don't know what they do. Ground Statistic Effect Group change, I don't know what that does. They increase the weapon length on Wild Riders with shields. Interesting. Alright, we're out of the elves. That was a lot of boring stuff. Okay, the abilities. Menace Below for the Skaven takes an additional 4 seconds, I guess? So it used to be nearly instantaneous. Now you're going to have to wait for it. It gives you a chance to dodge it if you're playing against it. Ushabti Realm of Souls, wind up time change from 5 to 10. They doubled that. So now you can kind of like dodge the Ushabti. I wonder if this will be across the board to summon abilities. The Axe of Dargo, remove recharge and melee condition. That's a buff. The recharge time changed from 15 to 120 seconds. And the duration lasts longer. So they looks like an overall nerf, I guess. But there's no condition. You can run Ungrim out of the fight. It'll recharge still, and you can run him back in. It lasts longer. Okay. It's more in line with other abilities of similar types. Gitsnick. Remove recharge and melee. Same, almost the exact same. This is for Grimgore. Let's see. Hellfire Sword. They're removing all the recharge and melee conditions is what it looks like. Same thing for the Pendant of Slanesh. The Dollar's Blade. Slayer of Kings. Okay, Witch Brew. They're nerfing this. No, it looks like they're increasing the armor piercing, actually. They're lowering the base, but they're increasing the armor piercing, which is a buff. But they're having the duration down to 24 seconds. So, probably a pretty neutral, net neutral. Gaze of Kane. Let's see. It no longer has a +8 leadership effect. But it looks like it'll do more damage. Okay. War Dancer abilities, which I don't know if anyone uses. Change to toggle stances, duration from 30 to infinite. So they want to encourage you to use the War Dancer abilities because nobody uses them. It's like, do you want to give up all your melee attack in exchange for a ton of melee defense? You're just trying to turn them into like frontliners that don't do any damage, basically. Yeah, I didn't see too many people using that. Scourge. So Kazrak's stuff is getting nerfed. Well, let me read what it says before I see that, because I see they removed the poison effect and they lowered the duration by 6 seconds. So they removed the +24 melee attack and melee defense phase effect, but they added a bonus versus infantry phase effect. I don't know. It looks like a nerf. You feel free to read the rest of that. I'm going to leave it up for a second. Dark Mail, they removed the +30 armor phase effect and the magic resistance of +25, but they added a 20% ward save, so maybe that's a buff. Ward save blocks all types of damage. Perhaps a buff. Or they just think it's a cleaner like effect. Just one, bonus instead of 2. The Von Karstein ring has unlimited uses now, but instead of having a 90% ward save, it has +66% ward save, and it has a smaller duration at 22 seconds. Seems good. I've seen him used in I think it was the Ever Chosen or some other tournaments people were hosting, and he's an absolute beast. He's really scary now, in a way that he wasn't before. Grombundle Has No Fear has been nuked from map-wide effect to 55-meter radius. That kind of sucks. But they added a +24 melee defense stat. So, and they lowered the duration. So maybe near the end of the battle, right, when all the dwarves are huddled together for warmth, trying not to get picked out and sniped out, and the battle has come down to, a small blob fight at the end, you pop this, your units are unbreakable, they get huge melee defense bonuses, and you win the fight, I guess. I mean, that's a scenario that I see happening quite a bit here. Rune of Oath and Steel now targets friendly units and affects units around the target. Has casting range. Oh, you can interesting. It has a range of 200 meters. So, and the same thing with Rune of Negation and the master versions. So you can send them out. Before the Rune Master just popped them around themselves, now you can use them as if they're spells on groups. That's a pretty big buff. Cool. Restore lasts for 4 more seconds on the Necrotex. Better healing to the constructs. Hold the Line is now 70 gold more expensive for the Empire. Okay. I'm just going to keep kind of scrolling. A lot of this stuff is kind of whack. Miscast related. Looks like more things are going to be more prone to misfire. Or miscast, rather. The Destroyer on Malekith. Change the phase blocked period from 90 to 45, meaning the phase can be reapplied to a unit 45 seconds. Okay, I'm not sure what that does. And then Tretch has the Lucky Skull Helm. Meaning whenever Tretch loses in melee combat, the phase can activate. Okay. So they're making it so that these two abilities, the Lucky Skull Helm and the Destroyer, proc more often. Alright, spells. We're near the end, guys. Hopefully this is all worth it. Removed minimum casting range from all spells except for magic missiles. This is a huge buff to casters. I talked about this in my video yesterday. Certain units, the scenario that I laid out was let's say you're playing Volkmar, you charge into a huge infantry blob, you want to nuke the infantry blob. Well, too bad you can't, because you should have cast your banishment before you got into the blob, because you weren't able to drop banishments directly on top of yourself. Now you can. Buff to casters. Pretty sweet. Winds of Magic cost increase from 14 to 18 for the transformation of Kadan. That is probably needed. It was the most abused spell in all of multiplayer, similar to the way that Spirit Leech and Fate of Buna used to be abused. I look forward to seeing other spells cast in multiplayer besides the try-hard transformation of Kadan builds. Anything else? Pestilent Birth getting, from 12 to 14. Vermintide going from 6 to 7. A little bit of a nuke there to summons for Skaven. Burning Head losing some of its damage, but its radius is bigger. Interesting. Penumbral Pendulum losing, looks like half its damage. Wow. I don't know if that's necessary, but we'll see. We'll see what the new one looks like. And then lastly, Sea Fang here to round us off, losing some of its damage. But that was the 1-2 punch. It's another combo. This right here is a combo that people were abusing a lot. Not abusing, but using a lot of multiplayer. You bring Wulfric and you bring a Shadowcaster. You would use Sea Fang on a set of archers, and then at the same time you would use a Pendulum or a Burning Head from a Firecaster. And it's really hard, especially if you're a newer player and your micro's a little bit weak. It's hard to dodge multiples of these types of spells at once. And they don't cast instantly, but they're pretty fast. So you don't have a lot of time to dodge. But they're nerfing this a little bit. This 1-2 punch that is very, very heavily used right now. So they're probably right to do so. Overall, I don't really disagree with many of the changes. I think weird nerfs to the Norgling Ironbreakers. Not sure why. I don't know if they were an auto-include. Good buffs to dudes like Khazrak. Really good buffs to Sigbald. I think he's the ultimate winner here. He got so much good stuff. It's kind of wild. And yeah. But guys, that's it for me today. I'm going to stop recording this, and hopefully, I think by now, I should be able to play pretty soon. Yeah. Hope you guys enjoyed the video. Hope you either agree with my changes, disagree, just let me know. We can always talk about them in the comment section below. I'm Brett, channel's Goodtalk Gaming, and as always, guys, I'll see you in the next one. Take care, y'all.